Hello yet again. So I'm starting on the starting screen for a very important reason. I'm starting a new series. The Sauramatia one. Well, I've recorded an episode for this week, and I wasn't really happy with it. I was making a lot of mistakes and getting a little bit stressy about it. I've managed to destroy Bandarlog more or less. I destroyed their god tier down to one fort, and I have 3 thrones in possession. About to claim both, and only 1 throne left, and I'm like 80% sure I could do it. But it's not. Sometimes it's not about if you can win, and it's more how you can win. And I wasn't really happy with my performance in that game. So we're gonna start a new one. With the faction I had most time playing in Dominions 4, which is Age Marignon. I've already created as a pretender. So the last game we were playing... Excuse me. We were playing on Bidden. I think we are going to move over to Pelivir for this one. Pelivir? I don't even know. You can see there is way more maps in here. I just keep browsing through the workshop, seeing what's there. So this one is slight step up. It's suitable for 6 to 10 players. We are gonna play on, once again, the minimum amount of factions in here, just because it's less crowded. Gives me some space to expand. As you may have noticed, I'm not very good at this game. And Age Marignon. So Middle Ages. 1, 2, 3, 4 gives us 6. I never played around with AI types, but that's fine. Yeah, we're gonna play all normal AIs again. I'm not going to choose AI factions. There is few ways you can make this very interesting, but that's not time for that yet. We are going to use Marignon, the Fiery Justice, which is basically the Spanish Inquisition. They have some strengths, they have a lot of weaknesses, and I will be piloting them based mostly off what I remember from Dominions 4, which is probably a mistake. Now, I've read through the instruction booklet for the first time over the last week. It does tell you quite a lot about how this game works. It's helpful to know what you are doing sometimes. So, Marignon. Marignon is a feudal theocracy. The Inquisition controls all aspects of the country, including the warfare, and feudal lords pay fives and tax the peasants, but it's all in the name of the church. And Marignon apparently arose from the ashes of Ermor and has succeeded in holding the shadow of the fallen empire at bay, just by being zealous. Now, I'm not gonna read all of this, but basically our national feature is we are a all-human nation. We have heavy infantries, we have access to crossbows, which is not that common in Middle Age. I think the only other faction that has as widespread access to crossbows is Ulm, and being highly advanced is kind of their thing. We also have quite good knights. I'm not sure if I'll be using them or not. In Dominions 4 I never used them really, but then that was Dominions 4. So when they say magic paths are fire and astral, they do mean fire and astral. I'll show you why in a second. Air and earth, I do believe, comes primarily from summons, but I can double check that in a second. Priests. It says powerful and inquisitors. They're not kidding. We have recruitable level 3 priests that are inquisitors, which lets us delete enemy dominion from from existence, really. We get, unlike most nations, bonuses to the bless points, so for if we manage to break into the fire bless, we get extra 2 points in it, and same for astral. And we have standard forts, but we can upgrade, I believe, to citadels using this little chap here, the architect. So he has a siege defense bonus, castle defense bonus of 15. So you can have either 15 standard dudes or this one, and they will do as good of a job. And he's also a mason, which means he's capable of increasing the fortresses 1 level above what the nation can usually do. I didn't even know the instrument was his instrument was a weapon. It's just a measuring stick, I think. It's horrible, but if you are sieging castle or defending a castle, yeah, there is you can do much worse than those guys. A couple of those guys in the back. Let's start with the units, shall we? I'm going to leave the flagellants alone for a second. Let's start with the crossbowmen. So for 10 gold, 8 resources and 9 recruitment points, you get a range 40, damage 11 piercing crossbow. It's relatively cheap. You can mass them very easily. That's basically most of the strategy you will have in Marignon is massing those, especially as you have easy access to fire magic, which lets you do things like fire arrows, which is a battlefield-wide spell, making every ranged attack that isn't a natural breath or mind blast attack do additional fire damage. Then, and in stats, there is nothing significant about him. Mediocre protection, size 2, so you can stack 3 of them in a square. Average magic resistance, average morale. Yeah, completely average all the way through. But they're relatively cheap, especially with what rest of our nation can cost sometimes. Next up, we have a swordsman with a Zweihander. Well, they call it a great sword, but it's pretty much the same thing, really. But yeah. He also costs 10 gold, but the resources go way up because he has a plate armor instead of crossbowman's ring mail. So most of it is the same apart from protection, which evens out to 14, 16 for the head, which could be worse. But yeah, could be much worse. Strength 10, attack 10, and defense of 11. Once again, about average. He does cost twice as many resources as the crossbow, though. They do have 5 encumbrance as well, so any battlefield-wide magic that relieves that is good. Unfortunately, we don't really have access to any of that. Halberdiers, 1 resource cheaper than the swordsman. They have a longer weapon. The attack is, I think, slightly worse. Yes, by 2 points. But the longer weapon makes it easier to repel enemy attacks. They also have a castle defense bonus of 1. So if we... where is it? I never remember whereabouts it is. That's patrol strength. There we go. So you have siege strength of 1 and siege defense of 1. and I believe this is an additional one, so this guy counts as 2 people for defending a castle. Next we have a pikeneer. They have a length 5 weapon, which is very good at repel checks. The weapon is made of iron as well, so it's good against some few types of elves, I believe, and magical beasties. Mostly Fae. Still 14 protection and 16 on the head. So he has defense -1. And I believe the pike also... Yeah, the pike also lowers it. So he cannot parry. And in the previous game, repel checks procced slightly differently than in this one. In Dominions 4, those guys, well, they were auto-included in any army, just because you could put a line of them down and have them tie down the enemy for the duration of the battle. It's not the case at the moment. I've done some tests with those guys, and yeah, not perfect. But I think either them or halberdiers are gonna still be our mainstay. Melee infantry, just because I think they are cheaper than anything else. By by recruitment points and by gold, they are cheaper than men-at-arms, although men-at-arms cost about the same in resources. So men-at-arms, great bodyguards. They have a higher value to be next to the commander when he's being assassinated. Slightly above average hit points. Size 2 still, protection of 16. The chainmail hauberk is slightly better than the plate mail. It was up here. It's okay. It's not plate mail. It's just plate cuirass. That makes more sense. So this one also covers arms and all that. He has a half helmet and he also has shield. He about the same magic resistance, same morale. Strength 10 still, pretty much all of our units are gonna have that, I think. Slightly higher attack skill, slightly higher defense skill. Yeah, precision doesn't matter. They are slower, I do believe, on the ground by 1. Yeah, but they have shields. Shields are useful, they let them eat arrows all day. So what I think I might do is mix those guys with either halberds or pikeneers. So we have a bigger oomph per square, so say 2-to-1 ratio. Have 2 shields, so there is a bigger chance the enemy, when they attack the square, attack the shield guy. And then have 1 halberd in there to deal some damage if possible. Then we have Royal Guard, which are also bodyguards. I have quite a few attacks, well, quite a few free attacks. They have a broadsword, a hoof, and 1 used lance. Strength 11, because they're on horseback, I believe. Protection 21. Now we are moving into real heavy armor. I believe that's on par with, well, Ulm infantry. We can check that later, but it doesn't matter. Yeah, they're quite a good unit. Unfortunately, they are overshadowed by a slightly better one. They're also bloody expensive. 40 gold, 59 resources, 46 recruitment points. Unfortunately, they are overshadowed by Knights of the Chalice. They are sacred. They are not much more expensive, just slightly more gold, and I think less recruitment points, is it? No, same recruitment points. 56. Less resources, just 10 more gold. And even if everything else being equal, just because they can carry a bless, that immediately makes them better. We will see if we might recruit some of them we will see how we go. Now, for commanders, we have a standard scout. It's just a scout, the same as the independent one. We have an assassin, which is useful. Put a couple of items on him, and he can quite handily kill some things. If you put anything like living water, bottle of living water or anything like that on him, that's nice strategy to dealing with some commanders. We have a troubadour, which is a stealthy seducer spy. Now, seduction ability is a little bit like assassination, and I don't think this guy has the stats for it. And you have to try and seduce the opposite sex, as far as I know. The spy helps, as he gives you much more accurate information about what's in the province, and he can raise unrest if you want him to. Yeah, if we find an Amazon province, that's gonna be 3 commanders from there. If we kit him outright. We have a friar, which is a stealthy level 1 preacher. They're quite useful in that. The paladin, level 1 priest with combat caster, so he only takes normal encumbrance rather than the double for it. So the way the encumbrance with spell works is you pay the encumbrance for the spell itself, and then the encumbrance for the turn gets doubled. Sorry, you take the fatigue from the spell, and then your encumbrance for the turn is doubled as well and added to it. So if you cast a spell that costs you 20 fatigue, if you don't have the combat caster thing, it will drain 30 fatigue out of your guy. So those guys are basically the equivalent of the Knights of the Chalice, just the commander version of it, which considering they're only recruitment 1, we could get a couple. Now, moving on to our mages, we have Initiate, level 1 fire, research ability 7 for 45 gold, that's not too bad. They are 2 recruitment points, only 1 resource, and is it in here? And they cost us 36 gold a year, divided by 12, yeah. Divided by 12, that will be our monthly amount, which is 3. Could be worse. Yeah, there is nothing significant about those guys. It's just 1 fire, 7 research. I don't think I will be using them, to be honest. We have much better options for that. And then we have Inquisitors, which are Fire 1, Holy level 2, research ability is 7. They are Sacred, which means that 54 upkeep gets cut in half. Which means they are, in fact, I believe, cheaper per year than the Initiates, but they cost more upfront. They are also Inquisitors, and they are old age, which means they will start dropping like flies as the turns proceed. We have Witch Hunters, which are going to be my mainstay of my mage core for one very specific reason. So let's take a look at this. So 185 gold, 2 resources, 2 recruitment points, so you can get 1 a turn. They cost absolute ton of gold comparatively to your standard troops, but commander-wise, that's not too bad actually. Not for what you are getting with this guy. 10 hit points, standard human, size 2, no protection, he has absolutely no armor. That's one of the things you need to think about when you are kitting them out later on. Magic resistance of 16, which is alright. Morale of 14, they can lead troops. 50 normal dudes and then 20 magical creatures on top of that. Strength 10, attack and skill, not important. Precision. Now, you can use them to use evocation spells, throw fireballs and firebolts and flying shards. Not flying shards. Flying shards are earth magic, not fire magic, but fireflies and anything that goes boom, explodes and sets people on fire, they can do. And with precision 10, they can do a okay job with that. You can also give them Eye of Aiming or something like that to increase that. Combat speed 10, that's about average. Map move 16, that's normal. Encumbrance 3, which, yeah, spellcasting encumbrance 3 because they're not wearing any armor, which is fine. Age, and this is the main problem with them. You want an unaging bless. We won't have an unaging bless because I'm playing a specific type of Marignon that I will get to in a second. But those guys really like an unaging bless, because that's not exact age they will come through when you recruit them. They can be a little bit older or they can be a little bit younger. If they're a little bit younger, they start out as old age and start dropping like flies. But yeah, I'll probably recruit those guys the most. They are okay researchers. They're sacred, so their upkeep is cut in half, which makes it 36, makes their upkeep about the same as the initiates. The only difference is the initiates, I believe, will... yeah, the initiates will live much longer. Now, so what can they do? They have a patrol bonus of 10, so they count for 10 units when patrolling instead of 1. They're sacred, which means they can take a bless. Research ability 11, quite decent. Priest level 1, which means they can bless themselves. Fire 2, which opens up quite a few fire evocations and other fire spells that I will get to in a second. And Astral 1. Those guys can form communions. What is a communion? Well, you have a communion slave and a communion master. And communion slaves are basically batteries for your mages. That's your power banks. And master can have any amount of slaves, and slave can have any amount of masters, but you usually want more slaves than masters, just because what it does is a master in the communion gets +1 to all magic paths per slave, I believe, that they share with that slave. So if we take 2 witch hunters, we make 1 a slave, 1 a master. The master should, as far as I understand, become Fire 3 Astral 2. If you have 3 witch hunters, 1 master, 2 slaves, he becomes Fire 4 Astral 3. And that starts opening up options. When a master casts a spell, the fatigue gets divided by amount of people in the communion and distributed evenly among them according to their, magic level. So, say we have... say we have two witch hunters again. So, the master would be Fire 3, the slave would be Fire 2, they cast a, say, I don't know, they are not going to be accurate numbers because I'm pulling them out of my posterior, but say they cast a fireball, the fireball costs 20 fatigue on level 2, so you take that 20, divided by 2, each of them takes 10. So the slaves takes 10 because they are on level, and the master would take only 5 because they are 1 level higher. Now, you can kill your communion slaves. It's quite easy to do if you mess up your scripting or give them too many masters, because the communion doesn't stop when the slave drops unconscious, it just keeps going, and if you overdo it, they will die of exhaustion. However, it's still quite useful. Usually you want your slaves to be more powerful in magic than your masters, because the masters will get a boost in power and the slaves won't. But if the slave starts out as a higher level, they will take less fatigue in the first place. So we'll be using witch hunters for communion batteries later on. We briefly discussed the architect. He lets us improve our fortresses, and he is good at holding or sieging. We won't have many of those, but one or two running around upgrading our stuff will be quite good. Now, then we have the High Inquisitor, our cap only level 3 sacred recruitable old age Inquisitor with Fire 1. We might get some of them, not very many. The biggest draw they have, I believe, is that they are priest level 3. Give them some mobility item, they can hop around and claim thrones for you. That or just burn undead, like nobody's business. And we also have Grandmasters. So they start quite an old age. They won't survive long. But they are fire resistant. They are fire free, start out as fire free, so I believe out of the gate they can summon fire elementals. And if you communion them up, they can summon them more efficiently. They are priest level 2, which is nothing to sneeze at if you are fighting against something. I don't know if the priest levels are affected by communion or not. It will be interesting to see. They also get a 1 random magic, so you have 25% chance of having fire 4 or astral 3 guy, and then you can have 1 earth or 1 air, both of which are useful. And then another 10% on top of that you will get something else. But they are slow to recruit and cost absolute ton of money, both in upkeep and initial starting gold. If I get them, it's gonna be 1. And yeah. The sites we get is the House of Fire Justice. Lets us recruit our High Inquisitors and Grandmasters. Kills undead and demons. So what it does is it basically sets them on fire when they enter not your dominion, but your capital. So that's your last line of defense against things like Armor or Celeria. It also produces 4 fire gems a turn and 1 astral, which is alright. Then you have the Royal Academy that lets you create architects and nothing else. You may notice that our sacreds, i.e. Knights of the Chalice and the Flagellants, are not in those sites, which means they are recruit anywhere. Well, I say anywhere. Knights of the Chalice need a fort and a temple, while the Flagellants only need a temple. And speaking of Flagellants, I might be using them a little bit more than I usually do. Just because they cost 10 gold, but you can recruit them anywhere you have a temple. 4 resources, which is fine. 5 recruitment points, which is okay. They have lower hit points, they always come... well, I say always, they have a very good chance of coming with affliction when you buy them, but they are your suicide chaff. They run into the enemy, they have quite a high morale, so you have to chew through a lot of them to make them rout. They're not the fastest, not the most impressive units, but they have a flail which attacks twice and gets +2 attack versus shields. And it's a 2-handed weapon. It is quite impressive. Not the highest attack, but you know, when you have 50 of those guys on the field, one of them is bound to hit something. And before I discuss god creation, if we go into spells, there is few spells that we want. So in Thaumaturgy we obviously want Thaumaturgy level 1, ideally, from the get-go, so we don't have to research it and spend turns doing that. Because at least at the beginning, this commune master-slave thing, well, not in the beginning, but throughout the game, that's going to be our mainstay. In enchantment, we have flaming arrows that we really, really want. Takes 4 fire to cast it and 1 gem, but it is a battlefield-wide spell affecting all of your archers. And I apologize, people are driving fucking motorcycles outside my bloody window. What a bunch of twats, eh? But it gives you extra 8 armor-piercing damage. Jesus. Fuck. Oh, some people like showing off. Level 5 we also get Flame Ward, which... considering we are gonna be throwing fire everywhere, that's gonna be useful. But it also costs 1 gem, so you have to come loaded with gems. Luckily, on, I believe, Construction 2, you can get Flames in a Jar, which means you only need to carry 1 additional gem. Well, I say carry 1 additional gem. You have to have plenty of gems, but you will always have at least 1 if you bring that with you. Construction, we really like Construction 2 for the fire gems, and then the other ones are also useful. Evocation, that's... this is like the signature thing of Marignon. So you have your fire blast, your flares, your flame bolts, burning hands, your mage classic, the fireball. You also get a Holy Pyre, which is exclusive to Marignon, I believe. Which is area of effect free, so it affects 3 squares from 40 plus range. It's only precision of 1, but if you are going against a lot of enemy units, that won't matter too much. You're bound to hit something late game with it. Fatigue cost of 20, but remember that we can have communions, which cuts down on the fatigue cost quite significantly. It deals 7 damage plus 1 for every level the caster has. Well, for every extra level over the spell minimum. It deals fire and magic damage, which is armor piercing, and it is not MR negate, and it deals 3 times damage against the undead and demons. And most of nations that have access to undead, they have access to loads of undead, so that precision 1 stops mattering even less. Although there are better ways to deal with undead that we have with our holy spam. Yeah, so this is probably for the minute. Probably won't go higher than Evocation 4 for quite a while before we start ramping things up for Flame Storm and Flames from the Sky later on in the game. Alteration. Honestly, there is few things in here. Immolation is good. Inner Sun could be alright. But it's a ritual spell, so you can enchant any and all of your guys with that. If you're fighting against undead, that could be useful to have them all. Now the ones I'm looking for is you could do Solar Eclipse and Incinerate if you really want to. Is it not in this one? Oh, there it is. Phoenix Pyre is useful. What am I missing? So it's summon Phoenix Power Yes, it is conjuration. So next up we have conjuration. So let's take a look at the astral side of it first, before I speak about the fire and what we really want it for. So on level 5 we have the Akashic Record, which one of our recruitable 2-turn sacreds can cast that for us for 10 perils a turn. Sorry, Akashic Knowledge. Now that's gonna be more difficult to get, but that's fine. That's fine. We have ways around that. We can forge boosters and like. We can contact Harbinger, which is an angel commander with quite good air magic, which breaks us big way into air on Conjuration 6, which we want because of Akashic Knowledge anyway. Then we have Heavenly Wrath, which summons Angels of Fury, and Angelic Hosts, which summons an Archangel, and he gets his little what's them called? His little posse of 6 other angels, I think troops, like, and Archangels are armed with flaming swords, and like we need more fire magic in this nation, eh? And then on level 9, which is unlikely I will A, reach, and B, be able to kit anything out for this. Actually, it's only Astral 7, so in a minute I'll show you we might be able to get it with a couple of boosters. You can summon a Heavenly Choir. It costs a pretty penny, but it brings 9 of those Angels of Heavenly Choir, which are seraphs. I do believe they are quite powerful. Sorry, they summon 1 seraph, and then summon 9 Angels of the Choir, whatever they are. I'm not quite sure. I think they have trumpets and all that, and they may be air mages. And then some additionally gives you 3 Harbingers, which are from the same stuff as level 6. So for quite a higher path cost and quite a lot more pals, you get 3 of those, which is 75%, 75 pals minus off of this one. Yeah, you get quite a lot and quite a discount. Now, let's talk long-term game strategy. So what I want to be able to do is use fire a lot, obviously. So what we can do is, on level 3 we can Phoenix Power, which grants you fire magic bonus of +1 and fire resistance of 15. It costs you 20 fatigue, but that's fine, because you can have every single mage drop that, well, every single witch hunter drop that before starting a communion, and afterwards you can do a whole bunch of shenanigans, like summon fire elementals on level 5. And this is probably going to be the mainstay of my strategy. So we are gonna have a fire in the jar, so we can always cast at least one of those. So they cost, so they're level 3. With Phoenix Power, our Witch Hunters go up to level 3, then Communion goes up to level 4 at least, possibly more. I don't exactly remember how it works, we'll find out when we get into the game. And then we get to summon fire elementals. Now, if we play our cards right, we might be able to also, on level 7, get Living Fire, which summons several fire elementals, 4+, one extra for each path he is Costs absolute ton of fatigue and costs 2 gems. But you know what? It might be worth it depending on how we get on. And we want to get to level 8 anyway. And that will be on the way. Because level 5 is required to cast the spell I'm looking for. But for 50 fire gems, which we are going to have in abundance, you get the King of Elemental Fire. There is 2 of those in the game. You can summon both of them. And they are fire super combatants. And you can kit them out, make them absolute terror. Now there is a third one you can summon, but that's in the blood. But we don't have blood path. So, and I believe is it the Eternal Pyre, where is it? Because that will help. Is it an indication? Sorry, I'm just checking something. Oh, and we can burn ourselves to clear our our afflictions. Oh, and level 6 fire gives you Purgatory, which... yeah. Scary. And you can give people rabies on level 8 Thaumaturgy. I'm just looking for a specific spell, do excuse me. There we go, enchantment level 6. We might want to get to that one as well. Fire level 6 is required, but by the time we get to level 6 in enchantment we should be able to get it. And it gives you 20 extra gems a turn, costs you 80 plus overcast. But yeah, any extra income is good. So you can do this a couple of ways, creating your god. You cannot have any undead chassis, I believe, just because our capital kills them. You can go with a Rainbow Pretender. I've done it in the previous game. I think I'm gonna skip it on this one. Could go with a Titan, like the Titan of the Forge. Fire breaks you into earth, gives you Master Smith and all other stuff. Quite useful. You could go with one of the Dominion 4 ones. Baphomet is quite popular for this nation just because it's fire, astral and blood. And blood is a really powerful path you can get. Now, I've decided to go with Age Marignon. And there are ways to do it that is not completely stupid. I'm not doing one of those ways. I've already created a pretender called Mr. Whiskers. He is a Celestial Lion. He is a what you would call an awake pretender, awake expander chassis, but we are not going to use him as such. He is going to start out imprisoned. That means for first 3 years we don't have a god on the field, which is fine. He doesn't have that high protection anyway, and only 3 slots. You could kit him out, but it's not gonna work that well. I took him only because I believe... apologies, doorbell. Yeah, he's 150 as opposed to 100 or 90 for most of the guys here. He is a little bit more durable. He already starts with fire and astral. And he has 3 attacks and all that. If he needs to do some legwork, he can. But he's reasonably cheap for what he brings to the field. Oh, I pressed the wrong button, sorry about that. 1, 2, 3, 4. Marignon, okay. I meant to go back into here, show you what I've done. So I gave him 5 fire and 5 astral, which gives us It gives us 7 skills, 7 bless points in each. Our bless points went into major fire resistance, mostly because my flagellants are gonna be in the line of fire if I choose to use them. Attack skill, which gives them +2 attack, making it easier for both my Knights of the Chalice and my flagellants to hit things, and flagellants hit like a truck. Magic weapons, so anything ethereal we don't worry about. And then solar weapons, which means anything that's a demon or undead, we just murder outright. And I've decided to go a little bit of a scales build here. As I said, there is better ways to do it. But, you know what, this isn't too bad either. So, Dominion Strength 7, starting. 3 Order, 3 Productivity. I took 1 hit just because I didn't have enough points to do it otherwise, and this will help our fire magic as well. The hotter it is, the easier it is to do fire evocations, I believe. 3 growth to offset the, I'm not really offset, to get as much out of it as we can. This is offsetting our bonuses a little bit, but we're still better than, you know, most nations. And I gave us 1 magic for extra magic penetration and a little bit quicker research. So Mr. Whiskers is not going to show up until way late in the game. However, the blesses he gives us are not incarnate, so it doesn't matter for them, and he gives us good scales, which means we can produce a lot of units and hopefully roll over our enemies. So yes, Mr. Whiskers is our god now. I'm gonna leave those as they are. I'm going to allow renaming and then go into this. So it starts out with 6 thrones required, 1 per player. So if I go... it's not very precise, this. If I lower it slightly so I don't have to get every single throne, just in case it pops some underwater, which we have no way of actually getting to. There is different ways of doing victories. You can do a conquer all, which you have to kill everything else. Victory by Thrones of Ascension, which is a default way to play the game. Victory by Dominion, so you have to achieve a certain Dominion spread over your over the map. Victory by Provinces, which self-explanatory, you have to have a certain amount of provinces before you win. And Victory by Research, which means if you research an X amount of points, you win. Well, yeah, that can be cheesed. I'm not going to change anything else for the minute. When I play on my own, I like to crank this up to 9, but it doesn't matter, and Hall of Fame entries higher, but it doesn't matter. And yeah, renaming is allowed, so I can rename people. That was one of the things I've done wrong in the previous game. And then we'll see how we go. Let's take a look at the starting position, do a couple of turns, and call it an episode. So in the beginning there was chaos, and now it is chaos yet again. Right, so research, we have evocation 1, could be better. We've got enchantment 1, which yeah, we need to get down enchantment at some point anyway. We want thaumaturgy, we want 2 levels of constructions to get the flame in a jar. We can work with what evocation we have at the moment. Flame bolt and fire darts and fireflies, that should be fine. Then we want conjuration 5, or do we? Let's just do those 3, and then we'll decide what we want. Now, some people like to expand with their friar, but because we have to wait a turn anyway, I don't really like to do that. Retreat. No, it doesn't matter, they will die anyway if they get caught outside, but we are going to utilize our friar and our troubadour almost exclusively to do some, what you call it, spying. So we have one throne right next to us, 2 provinces away. Yeah, this is not one of those wraparound maps, so that's gonna mess with me again. In recruit units, I'm going to recruit 1 paladin, just because of high leadership. Or should I start cranking out witch hunters immediately? Decisions. Well, witch hunters can lead troops as well. But I could do with a paladin, really, for better morale. So I'm gonna recruit 1 of those. And let's see, we have a bunch of pikes and a bunch of crossbows. Let's see how many of those. We can get 2 of those and then 2 of the crossbows. How many of halberds can I get? Also only 2. Yeah, they cost identical. I'm not gonna get a Knight of Chalice. They would be quite good. I don't think I can get... I can only get 1, which is no good. They would get Moral Malus and all that. Not very useful. So, 2 crossbows, 2 of those, 1 flagellant. Yeah, for now, let's go with that. Well, let's see what happens. We didn't take a look at what we have as our name bars. So, first of all, let's do this. Makes it easier for me to see what I'm actually doing. And then go into statistics. There we go. So, we have Mr. Whiskers as Marignon, Zuri for Machaca. That's right. Trackham for Calum, I believe that is. Yes. Right, so Machaca is your sub-Saharan African tribes, I believe. That's your Zulu and other things, and yeah, giant tarantulas. Yeah, those guys, it's very easy to underestimate Machaca, but they can be quite dangerous. Calum, they are Zoroastrian winged people with access to a lot of air magic, I believe. Air, water, things like that. They are very proficient at calling down the skies. But they thrive in cold, as in most of their armor is made of ice and melts if they leave the cold of their dominion. So we only have +1 hit, but that should be alright for us. Then we have Pangaea, which is half man from the Greek mythology. Very good nature mages, dangerous like that. We have Jotunheim, the ice giants of the Nordic mythology. And we have Vanarus, which is the mix of Germanic and Slavic, Russian type of mythology. Which is alright. They have the truth skin shifters, which are kind of dangerous, but yeah, it's another ice nation, and they can be quite dangerous as well. Also access to a lot of air, and they have a Vanabog, which is a quite good fag chassis, because 2 air, 1 death, which can be boosted I believe, and can be higher, and blood is always useful. Is also sacred, so yeah, a lot of ice. Well, I say a lot of ice. 1, 2, 3 ice nations, 2 fire-ish nations, and Pangaea on the map. Could be worse. What thrones do we have? High throne, spreads dominion, brass throne. I think we want this one, just because 1 extra fire gem and 50 gold is nothing to sneeze at. Throne of the Night, blessed troops get dark vision. That's quite alright, considering we should have access to eclipse. Throne of Thorns. Yeah, poison resistance is not bad, and 2 nature gems can also be useful. Throne of Flames. That would fit us. 3 fire gems a turn, plus 5 fire resistance. Yeah. And then Throne of Spring. 1 air. Dominion gets growth, which we cannot really benefit from, because we are already at growth 3. And you can get an air nature mage, which would be rather useful. Okay, so army setup. It's 1 unit. I'm gonna tag you in there just because. 1 there, 1 there, and what you're going to do is cast Blessing twice and then cast spells. You are going to hold an attack closest. You're just gonna fire at closest, I think. I could have them fire at enemy archers. We'll see what's the situation around us in a second. And then I'm gonna have you hold attack. I highly doubt they'll make it to rear, so closest as well. I'll try to stagger them out nicely. Okay, so line formation for my pikemen, because we want to utilize our range combat above all else first of all, because crossbows are good, at least they were back in the day. I'm gonna have the flagellants flank the enemy. Right, so what do we have around us? We have militias and heavy infantries, possibly can take that. We have militias, light infantries and archers, 40 of them possibly can take that. Barbarians, at least 20. We're gonna struggle with that one. Lion tribe archers, probably shouldn't rush into them just yet. Yeah, not the worst start, but could have been easier. I'm just gonna tell my spies to keep moving. I really want to find out what this throne here is. Now, don't be surprised if I bounce on my first expansion. Honestly, don't be surprised. That happens a lot to me as Marignon, especially as scales. So I'm gonna start recruiting witch hunters full force. And last turn I've wasted commander points. Unfortunately, I could have got a paladin and a bunch of things. Because paladin is only 1. I could have gotten another troubadour, which would have been useful. Still 1 commander point, so tell you what, I'm gonna start recruiting 2 witch hunters. Next turn I'm gonna get 2, and that's gonna make our production of them faster. Right, we want some of this and some of this. Down to 0 resources. That's fine, we want as many crossbows as possible. Now this is a farmland, which gives us a higher income. Decisions, eh? So heavy infantries can mess us up, but there appears to be less of them, so we'll risk it for a biscuit, eh? Now, let's view this battle. So our archers move forward through our units because of the range thing. But that's fine, we still start quite far ahead. So we blessed, I believe, all of our flagellants. Yeah, and as I said, never healing wound and all that. It's not bad, we only have 2 with afflictions. But we've got magic and solar weapons and fire resistance, and could be worse. And we held for 2 turns, and now our infantry is moving forwards as well. We haven't quite reached the critical number of crossbows, and as you can see, flagellants got just melched. Yeah, I think we lost this one. Mostly because the enemy got behind us, but they did rout, looks like. So, heavy losses, but nothing irreplaceable, and we did get our first expansion. Not perfect, but you know what, I ain't gonna complain. I usually bounce off of the first one. It does, however, mean I need to go back and regroup a little bit. Yeah, Pikeneers. To be fair, Pikeneers should be alright for basic enemy troops. And I can pick up a fire mage on the way through. As well, because next turn we'll have 2, so I can take 1 with us, give us some extra oomph. And let's take a look at this. The High Throne spreads dominion. Not going to complain, our dominion gives us more income. What do we have here? So, long deads, which we should be able to kill, and heavy infantries, which we will have to prepare for. Now, after this throne, I think we'll start heading south or north. Well, ideally we want to create a second expansion party going the other direction. Jesus Christ, some cars are... No, that was a motorcycle as well. Fucking twats. Right. So, hopefully that will work out for us. I'm going to end it here, I believe, and then pick it up next time. Thank you for watching.